A few weeks ago I shared my review of the Universal Audio 68 with you, where I also compared it to my real tube amp, the Marshall 1987X. As someone who loves real tube amps, who's very old school and who was never really convinced by modeling, I was, well, convinced by modeling for the first time. In that video I mentioned I wanted to try it as a solution to do more silent recording without having to choke my tube amps through an attenuator all the time, and as a backup for live shows. I had to get used to hearing my guitar through monitors when recording, and for live I would have to rely on stage monitors. Especially in a live situation, I don't like hearing my guitar through a monitor because they always sound different and too often sound shitty. So I wanted to be able to use my line through my cabinets, for which I needed a power amp. And I was curious how that would hold up against my actual Marshall, both going through an actual cabinet. I went ahead and tried a few power amps and pedal format within a reasonable budget because it's not my intention to use this as a main solution. The one I like best and which power rating was safe with all of my cabinets was the Hotone Loudster, and it felt and sounded best out of all the ones I've tried. The fact that it looks good next to my Lion is an added bonus. Both the Marshall and the Lion are going through the same cabinet loaded with creamback speakers, mic'd up with a dynamic and ribbon microphone. And both are also going through the Cap Amp Plus using the same IR. The Marshall is going through an attenuator as well, but it is going through the Cap Amp Plus first. The second output of the Lion is going to the Cap Amp as well, and the first output is going to the Hotone Loudster and from there directly to the cabinet. I will be comparing them with different guitars and different effects at various levels of gain to get a good picture. And at the end I will throw both into a mix to get a full picture, so stick around for that. I recorded everything with the Lion first, and what I noticed right away when I switched to the Marshall is how bright and aggressive it is. Of course, due to the attenuation we have a Fletcher Munson thing going on. And the Iron Man actually has a solution for that built in, which is a presence cut that I use to keep things bearable at this level. And I think at this point you've probably already noticed that both my Firebird as well as my Les Paul sounded more bright and aggressive through the actual Marshall amp. So I will try a Telecaster now, but I will pair it with a preset that I made on my HX effects that makes the Telecaster a bit less bright, give it a bit of volume lift to make it work better through my actual Marshall amps. At this point, it might be a matter of personal preference whether you like the more mellow sound or the more aggressive and bright sounds. But what's more important to me is how it will sound and work in a mix. So I will switch back to my Les Paul, play a solo and put the two of those in a duel. In the mix, I think the real Marshall sounds more organic, has more character and simply fits better in the mix. The Lion with the loudstar through the cab don't sound bad, but there is something lacking. But is that really the fault of the Lion though? After all, I'm using a solid state power amp behind the Lion that colors the tone before it gets to the cabinet. So let's go back to what I did in my first video and only compare the two of them with cab simulation, only this time I will use my own settings on the Lion instead of a preset stock setting. So here you can hear that they both sound really similar, even though I haven't dialed them in to sound the same. I only set the Lion the way I liked it on its own. That means the difference that you hear through the cabinet and the microphones can only come from the different power amp. To me, that's not an issue though, because on its own the Lion with the loudstar still sound and feel really good to play. At this volume I even prefer them in the room to the actual Marshall amp. And I've rehearsed with the Lion like this, without my bandmates noticing I wasn't actually using the real Marshall tube amp on top of my cabinet. So even though I would prefer my real Marshall tube amp through a cabinet one mic'd up, I still think this little rig is awesome, and the fact that I can use the Lion through an actual guitar cabinet makes me more happy with it. And this little 2-pedal rig is also a bit more flexible than my real Marshall as well. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I'll see you next time.